conscious plan in the beginning?
I really don't know what it means, a coordinated effort. So we have a bigger picture. Is that a coordinated effort in terms of this? There seems to be two different groups. Are those groups actually synergizing together, or is a coordinated effort only that the city here at their workshop is going to have one presentation, and then the other guys who aren't talking to that one group is going to have another presentation? Is it a coordinated effort, meaning the city is coordinating the whole thing in 15 minutes? Is there any kind of real coordination? And coordination meaning...
Right, so you're asking, so this is what you're asking, and this is actually an important point, because I took it the other way. And you see, that's why it's so important to understand these words they use. Because is this a coordinated effort between Maplewood's North End study that they've commissioned, and that they're going to coordinate now with Ramsey County and the Ramsey Rail Authority and that group to make sure that they all know what they're each doing? Or is it, as you say, it's just coordinated for that evening for the purposes of the workshop, because they put them both on the same agenda?
These are all highly educated people. They can say as much or as little as they want to. We're hoping that everybody's talking. Are we saying here from this planner, who talks pretty quickly, so it's often hard to even hear what he's saying, the Maplewood planner, is the coordinated effort meaning we're not talking about Vicki Reinhardt and Nora Sawwick, personal friends, they're working together, and Nora Sawwick is talking to Vicki Reinhardt about the train and
the bus,
and yeah, there's no train in this.
No.
The fake train.
We might be getting run over.
Right, yeah, but it's not by a
but
train.
But it's not by a train, it's by a rapid bus transit system.
Okay, so, yes, so we don't know what level the coordination, and we don't even know if the coordination is actually means, a better word is concealment. But we don't know if that means that Ramsey County planners who are involved with running the train are talking to Mike Martin.
The bus.
And Dwayne Kaneko, again, the bus, thank you, because they have it in everybody's head that it's a train, because that's what they promised people, was a light rail train.
Yeah.
And of course, that was another slipshod job where they promised one thing, they baited one thing, and then they switched. And of course, that comes as no surprise in Maplewood.
And you know, there's people, you can go around Maplewood today, and we've done this over the last couple of weeks, and talk about what's going on with the mass transit going up the Bruce Vento Trail. And approximately 70% of the people we talk to all think it's going to be light rail. So you can't blame Mr. Berglund for making the slip, because there are so many people that we have talked to where they think it's going to be light rail, and we tell them, no, there is no light rail. First of all, there wasn't any money for light rail, and so then
and there never was.
There never was.
And there never would be. And they, in my mind, knew there never, ever would be.
And so then they changed the mode to rapid bus transit, which is a bus. And rather than changing where the bus is going to, the bus route will be, they decided, well, we'll just run it up the Bruce Vento Trail, when originally the reason they needed to use the Bruce Vento Trail was because it was going to be light rail, and because of the cost, they wouldn't have to buy right-of-way for the light rail if they use the Bruce Vento Trail, so that would substantially cut the amount of cost for the project. Well, then when it was evident there wasn't going to be any light rail, they still decided they're going to use the Bruce Vento Trail, even though that concern about the financial issue was out the window, because as we all know, a bus can run along Highway 61 on the shoulder very easily. And that could be the dedicated lane for the rapid bus transit.
Rapid bus transit, if you want to know what that means, that generally means that instead of stopping potentially at every block when somebody hits the buzzer, that it stops every fourth block or whatever is. It doesn't stop at every single block potentially, but there are bus stations. I think bus stations mean I think everybody knows what a bus station is.
Right.
Bus station is generally just a little plastic enclosure with a schedule. They are pretending if they're going to have some sort of platform and they're going to have everything except for carnival rides there, coffee shops. And of course, how can they? Because there's no commerce in the backyards of people's
That's right.
people's yards where this is going along. And whether there will be a park and ride at each one of these bus stops.
Let's continue with our next clip.
The review period right now, and with the rush line process at this point of doing stationary planning, we felt this was an opportune time to jumpstart work on the north end and had Perkins and Will conduct the market study so we get a better sense of where we're at and what we're starting.
This, of course, makes it sound like the impetus for this North End study was the fact that there's the rapid bus transit project. And yet, we were at that retreat in April, and it seemed clear when we were there filming that retreat that the impetus for the North End study was because Sears was leaving the mall, and that there's great concern by city officials of what the status of the mall will be if several of the large anchors leave.
And the only reason, looking forward, the only reason there's any kind of concern by city officials, because most of them don't live in Maplewood, it's because the residents in the area, the residents of the city, go over to Maplewood Mall and they look at it and they say, wow, what's happening over at Maplewood Mall? And they're talking to their city elected officials, what's going on? Because public officials like Melinda Coleman, Dwayne Kaneko Dewey, Michael Martin, I don't think they really could care one way or the other what happens to Maplewood Mall. It's just that the residents, especially people who invested in real estate in that area, are wondering what's going on in my backyard. Because I go over to Maplewood Mall and every time it looks like it's further.
Well, and it's easy to be able to say we've hired a consultant who is doing a study of the North End to gather the statistics of the market, of the trade area, of what we can expect for the future. And so that's an easy answer to then tell those people who call up concerned about what's going to happen to my real estate since I bought into Legacy Village, which is like a half a block from the mall.
And of course, the issue of the market study is there really is no goal set, there's no parameter set, there's no vision of what the market study's to do. Before you put hundreds of millions of dollars in a dedicated bus rapid transit limited stop bus route, shouldn't have there been a market study for that? Is that market study, which is in part studying the same area as the North End market study, doesn't it seem like it's absolutely duplication to have this market study? Of course, when for the last few years, 4 to 5 years, when they've been going full force on this Bruce Vento, what they call it, the purple line, you would think there would be a market study there. Where is the market study? And now they're going to do a market study apparently focused on Maplewood Mall with no clear definition, no clear goals, no clear idea of parameters of meaning which, if the market study comes up this way, then we're headed this way. If it comes this way, then we're going to go this way. They're just kind of saying we're going to do to see where we're at. Well, don't you think that people who have been running the city for 20 or 30 years, like Melinda Coleman, shouldn't they know by now where the city in Maplewood Mall is at? What does that mean to see where it's at? to see where what is at. It's crazy. You've seen Mark Martin. We're just doing a market study. In other words, I mean, studies aren't free. It's not like Mark Martin is going down to the library and doing a study or putting a street counter out in front of the mall. They're hiring an expensive consultant firm that doesn't really have any parameters to do a market study to see where we're at. Well, how would they know more of where anything's at except the people who have been running the city on a daily basis, spending tens of millions of dollars every day? What are they doing? Nora Solwick, 14 years in the state legislature, isn't she a public policy wonk? Don't you think if she has all these great qualities that she continues to tell us about, she would know where it's at? And we know Kathy Juniman, she's a lifelong resident of Maplewood. And her dad was on the city council. Don't you think she would know where something is at?
Well, and she's been on the council for over 16 years.
Right.
Wouldn't she know?
I mean, should we have I think the residents of Maplewood should wonder, maybe we should have a study to see where the whole city is at. And then they would see what a complete and total disaster the city of Maplewood is in.
Right. Well, and here's a question that we don't hear the council ask, that they should have asked before they started this North End study, is, are we going to ask this consultant for recommendations? They didn't ask that question. Are we going to ask him for recommendations? Because you can have a study, but if it's only a study that is gathering statistics, that is just, as we saw, that it talks about what is the population median age and income and whatever, but then it doesn't draw any conclusions and recommendations. It's leaving it to the council, who claims they have no expertise in any of this. That's why they have a professional staff. It leaves them to come up with recommendations. Or it leaves the city staff to come up with recommendations, and they are clearly more interested in putting out the PR spin rather than actual, real, concrete recommendations. And so what they need is that they need somebody who's got that background in actually understanding how do you get economic job growth development in a community with certain parameters and factors that are present. That's what they need. They need somebody who can say, here's the recommendations. Your population of Maplewood is older than the surrounding area. What kind of a recommendation do you give based on that? You have to have, what's the outcomes? What are you recommending? Well, we're not going to put in more water parks. If you've got an older population, do you think a recommendation would be to put in more water parks? Probably not.
I think the recommendation is going to be put in the BRT rapid transit trail, because that is going to be the solution to jobs, jobs, jobs. Isn't the study, after having a study on something that's already decided to do, and then the study comes up, and then they recommend what the government in Maplewood and Ramsey County has already
approved. That's right.
Right.
Yes, we're going to commission a study to approve what we've already done, so that way when people object, we'll say, but the study says. But you see, it was commissioned specifically to bolster the decision you already made that was based on nothing.
Right.
Wow.
And we know that this firm already knows what their outcome has to be. Although they're not giving any guidelines to the public, behind closed doors, behind the curtain, in the back room, this firm, Wills & Perkins, has already been told what their final outcome is to be. Wouldn't that be how things work in Maplewood? Because there's no requirement that the any of these public policy wonks, Nora Sawwick, 14 years in the state legislature, Melinda Coleman in the leadership for 20 or 30 years, are they going to be able to come up with some kind of recommendation? How would they be able to put together a recommendation?
Right, right, very good.
I mean, recommendation, I think, this is not, I don't think this is deep.
Let's take a look at our next clip as they still are doing the ramp up to the presentation.
Welcome to the Maplewood City Council. Mr. Gitzloff and I spend a lot of time talking to each other on the phone and in meetings because Rushline, we've been working on it for 3 years, and now we're going into the really exciting part, which is the transit-oriented development affiliated with it. So glad you're here. Let you take it away.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Can you hear me all right? Is the mic good? And I'll be really brief because I think a lot of the key points here is how Rushline, the work we're doing, is tying into the work that's going to be kicking off here for the north end.
Now that absolutely supported what you just said, that this North End study is to verify that rapid bus transit is the right way to go up the Bruce Vento Trail, and that how that is going to somehow be, as Nora Sawwick said, a contributor to transit-oriented development. I want to understand what those words mean. Transit-oriented development. What is that?
Well, and those are obviously code words. That means something. There are hidden meanings in that code word. And you have to decipher what transit-oriented development says. Some people who would say that transit-oriented development means that they're going to put small businesses along there, maybe grocery stores. There's code words for something. Maybe it means they're going to have, if people say, no, that would not be the right thing, grocery stores, maybe it means there's going to be jobs there, not grocery store jobs, but people are going to get off the bus and they're going to go to their job. Maybe to their school job, working in the school workforce, or be a police officer, going to their police officer job, or going to their public works job, where they can go to City Hall or to the Parks Municipal Building. Or maybe their factory they can go to. There'll be a factory there. Maybe that's what they mean, that it'll be right in the line so they can step out and there will be a job there. Get off and the doors will open and the doors will open and they will be at their work.
But then that would mean that we'd actually have to have those types of employment opportunities along that line for that to happen. So it gets us back to that original question as to how are you going to best utilize the mall area to produce jobs? And that then begs the question, what